Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy embarked on a dramatic visit to Washington on Wednesday in his first overseas trip since Russia invaded Ukraine 300 days ago. Clad in his trademark olive green trousers and sweater, Zelenskiy was greeted at the White House by U.S. President Joe Biden, along with First Lady Jill Biden, where he met one-on-one with the president and thanked U.S. political leaders and the American people for their extraordinary support.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Of course, thanks my partisan support, thanks Congress, and thanks from our just ordinary people to your ordinary people, Americans.
The visit comes at a critical time for Ukraine. Just ahead of Zelenskyy's arrival, Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced the United States would provide more military aid for Ukraine, including a Patriot air defense system to help it ward off barrages of Russian missiles. The Patriot missile is deemed to be one of the most advanced U.S. air defense systems, offering protection against attacking aircraft as well as cruise and ballistic missiles.
It's going to take some time to complete the necessary training, but the Patriot battery will be another critical asset for Ukraine as it defends itself against Russian aggression.
What's going to happen after Patriots are installed? After that, we will send another signal to President Biden that we would like to get more Patriots.
We're working.
That is our life. We are in war. I'm sorry.
Zelenskyy also timed his visit as Congress advances a government funding bill that includes $44.9 billion in emergency assistance to Ukraine and NATO allies, and as Republicans prepare to take control of the House of Representatives for the first time in 4 years. The Kremlin said on Wednesday it saw no chance of peace talks with Kyiv and that continued Western arms supplies to Ukraine would lead to a deepening of the conflict. In recent weeks, Ukraine has come under repeated Russian missile and drone strikes targeting its energy infrastructure, leaving millions of people without electricity or running water in the dead of a freezing winter. As Ukraine prepares to enter a second year of war, a Zelenskiy aide said the highly symbolic trip to America's capital showed the deep trust between Kyiv and Washington and hoped it would disprove any Russian suggestions that the U.S.-Ukrainian relations are cooling.
The American people have been with you every step of the way, and we will stay with you. We will stay with you for as long as it takes.
Afghan men and women protest separately outside a university in the eastern city of Jalalabad on Wednesday, after the Taliban government banned women from higher education, drawing condemnation from foreign governments and the United Nations. These female students in the capital Kabul have been in shock since the decision was announced late on Tuesday in a letter to universities. Rafat thought the ban might be fake news when she saw it on social media, but international reports confirmed it.
This morning we went to the university and we saw that they weren't allowing us to enter the university. They were mistreating female students.
The ban could make it harder for the Taliban administration to gain international recognition and get rid of sanctions, which is severely hampering the economy. Student Hasti says this will paralyze Afghan society's development.
My classmates informed me about us being banned from universities. I cried a lot. I had all my study materials but couldn't study. We were all awake until morning. We didn't sleep at all. When the sun rose, we felt there was no life for women in Afghanistan anymore, since they have closed all routes to success for women.
Most girls in Afghanistan are unable to go to school beyond primary level. The Taliban administration says it's working on a plan for girls' secondary education, but it hasn't given a time frame. Several Taliban officials, including the deputy foreign minister and administration spokesperson, have spoken out in favor of female education in recent months. But the supreme Taliban spiritual leader, based in the southern city of Kandahar, has the final say on major decisions.
Donald Trump paid no income tax during the final year of his presidency, instead reporting a financial loss from his sprawling business interests. That's according to tax filings released by a Democratic-controlled congressional panel after a multi-year legal fight over the former president's personal finances. The records show that Trump's income and his tax liability fluctuated dramatically during his 4 years in the White House.
I built a great company, one of the best companies. I have some of the greatest assets in the world.
And the tax statements cut against the Republicans' long-cultivated image as a successful businessman as he mounts another White House bid. Trump and his wife, Melania, paid some form of tax during all 4 years, the documents showed, but were able to minimize their tax bill as income from Trump's businesses was more than offset by deductions and losses. The committee questioned the legitimacy of some of those deductions, including one for $916 million. The records show that in 2017, the Trumps paid just $750 in federal income tax. The next year, the couple paid nearly $1 million. In 2019, they paid $134,000, and in 2020, they paid nothing.
Mr. Pascrell? Yes. Mr. Pascrell votes yes. Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis votes aye.
Lawmakers obtained the records after a years-long fight and voted on Tuesday to make them public. A Trump spokesman said the release of the documents was politically motivated. Quote, "If this injustice can happen to President Trump, it can happen to all Americans without cause," Trump Organization spokesman Stephen Chung said on Wednesday.
3, 2, 1.
Trump refused to make his tax returns public, even though all other major party presidential candidates have done so for decades.
Wall Street's main indexes on Wednesday posted their biggest daily gains for December so far, lifted by upbeat earnings from at least two corporate giants and a jump in consumer confidence. The Dow closed up 1.6%, while the S&P and Nasdaq each gained about 1.5%. U.S. consumer confidence rose to an 8-month high in December as inflation retreated and the labor market remained strong. Ross Mayfield is investment strategy analyst at Baird.
I think if there's one thing kind of holding the economy together, the U.S. economy and maybe even the global economy, it's the resilience of the U.S. consumer. And to the extent that the consumer is kind of perking up a little bit at a time when you would expect, retail sales to be coming down, at a time where you think inflation might finally starting to weigh on the consumer, they're continuing to show resilience. So I think that data point today could be providing a little bit of juice to the markets.
And speaking of that consumer resilience, Nike shares soared 12% after beating profit expectations for its second quarter on strong holiday demand from North American shoppers. And FedEx, which sparked a market sell-off in September after pulling financial forecasts, provided financial guidance and announced plans for $1 billion in cost cuts, sending its shares up more than 3.4%. Still, Wednesday's data also showed that U.S. existing home sales in November slumped for the 10th month in a row to a 2.5-year low as the housing market was hurt by higher mortgage rates. But the data may be fueling investor hope that the Fed could ease up soon on its tightening monetary policy.
This Ukrainian soldier has been fitted with a bionic arm. Oleh is one of about a dozen soldiers who are receiving prostheses in Mexico through a partnership with the Ukrainian embassy there. He was injured in the war earlier this year and has declined to share his last name out of safety concerns. For the past 3 months, he's been working with Human Assistive Technologies, a medical technology manufacturer founded by Colombian Alvaro Rios.
The idea is to be able to help the majority of the Ukrainian population that has unfortunately suffered this type of amputation because of the war. So we are doing a whole logistics process to reduce costs and facilitate everything so we can attend to many more patients in Mexico.
Oleh was among the very first to receive prostheses through the program. He's a professional soldier, first joining the Ukrainian forces in 2014 when the Russian invasion of Crimea began. He took up arms again at the beginning of the year as Russian soldiers began to creep into Ukraine at the direction of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
That is our land. I am Ukrainian, and they came to invade our land, and joining the army is automatic. We had no other option.
Heading back to his home country with his new arm, he has 2 things on his mind: celebrating his son's 12th birthday and returning to battle.
Слава Україні!